coming to springtime. And one of the best things, one of our most favorite things to do, and I used to pick on it a lot, and that was turkey hunting. I used to say I hated turkey hunting, and you want to know why? Because how could something with a brain that big outsmart all of our brains? Well, that's turkey hunting. Now, we've got the 4 species here in America, in the United States. We have the eastern, which is one of your biggest birds, and that's where we originated from, Illinois. You have your Rios down into Texas, the Panhandle, Oklahoma, and all that, and they're branching out a little bit. You have your Osceolas in only one state, in Florida, and we're always down at Hoppy's hunting them. But now you come to another bird called the Merriam. The white plumage, the golden white on the fans. They're beautiful birds. And believe it or not, they're one of the most vocal out of all the turkey species. The Merriam actually originated from Arizona, New Mexico, and right here in southern Colorado. Due to the great conservation groups, NWTF, and so many others, and all the sportsmen and women, now the Merriam species has branched out. You have it in North and South Dakota, you have it in Oklahoma, Nebraska, Montana, Wyoming. I mean, you have it in so many different states. So it allows us all to have some major opportunity to have a blast hunting one of the most vocal birds out there. Born and raised in Illinois, it was the easterns. And on most of the times, it was an old crop field or in between wooded lots, and you set up and you did some calling, you used your decoys. The Merriam turkey lives in a vast area. When I say that, they could be down in the river bottoms, big cottonwood draws, or they could be up in the mountains in the ponderosa pines. Either way, it's a definite challenge because most of the time it's going to be a spot and stalk if you didn't locate the birds prior to your hunt. We all know turkeys roost in trees. So when you're up in a mountain and you're up in pinyon and cedars, you've got to try to find and locate those trees that those birds are going to get into. So it could be miles away. They move a lot. They're constantly on their feet. They're always going back and forth. And don't kid yourself, they will cover a lot of mileage. So you have to do the same. So knowing that we're almost in a spot and stalk for elk or mule deer's type of hunt for Merriams, the other few things is you want to make sure you want to go light. You want to go with a light pack. You want to go, with your gun or your bow. You want to have a decoys that fold up or that are lightweight so they're not bulky, because you're going to cover a lot of distance. We could talk a little bit about fanning, and that's with the tail fan. That's opening it up and bringing it down. What's really cool, especially on Merriams, you're in these rolling hills. You use the contours of the land to get you closer and get you more opportunity. Well, one of the things you can do is if you see these birds and they're coming down, remember this: it's very hard to call any animal, bird, elk, mule deer, whitetail, anything, back from where they came from. When you see them heading, let's say if they're coming from the west heading east, you want to try to intercept them in that travel route. Don't try to go back and try to call them back to you. Try to get in front of them and use the terrain. So if you're in a little ditch and you're coming up and there's hardly any cover, you put your fan and you just bring it up, or you slowly actually raise your decoy. And be prepared, because a lot of times these gobblers see that and they're coming out of that draw and they're running straight up, and we've shot Merriams at point blank range coming into decoys. Merriams tend to cover a whole lot of ground in one day. So knowing that, you've got to have certain spots or locations that you can try to intercept them in those routes. Again, I don't care what animal it is. Food, cover, and water. You pinpoint those 3 things on any animal on this planet, and you're going to be more successful. The Merriam actually tends to be one of the more flocked up birds, and they stay together most of the season. So knowing that, 1, you're going to have a lot more eyes, but 2, actually makes it a little bit easier to locate them, and they're always talking to each other. Now, they say there's 25, 27, 30 very distinct calls, but here's the bottom line. We could go through all types of calls, but we all know the basics. the yelp, the purr, the cutting, the gobble, you know what I mean? The owl hoot to get them to respond, you know, in the morning. These are really some of just the basic ones, and when they're starting to get close and you're just doing a little purring and you're doing that, all you're doing is solidifying in that little bitty brain that, hey, this is the real deal. Listen, if you've hunted turkeys anywhere, you look at a tree and you go, oh yeah, they'd roost in there. Well, a lot of those small cedars and pinyons, they won't. They can't get into them and they're too low to the ground. However, you know, in the past, we actually have seen some birds, some gobblers and hens get up in some of those higher cedars and pinyons. I don't think they liked it, but they were caught too late in the day, and they just went up there and they locked down on those little limbs and they stayed there. But the big thing is locating those areas, knowing where they're roosting. And because we're out west, there's a whole lot of ranches. They love to be around a cattle ranch. Trust me. Not only with all the cow chips and the flipping them and, you know, seeing the bugs and everything else that's in there, the meals, but the other thing too is those big hay bales. We've seen them for years just perch up on there, do their thing, and just look way far. I mean, so do not count out those old ranches, because you'd be surprised that a lot of these birds will hang in and around those areas. You know, don't forget now, you're not sitting in a big hardwood somewhere. You're in open ponderosa pines, you're down in the cottonwoods, which has a lot of cover. And you got to remember, these birds do like cover, but boy, they sure favor those open areas where they can watch predation coming from a long ways off. So, match your camo pattern to where you're going. I'm a big fan in going, instead of this, you know, the old standard sticks and limbs, you know, looking at your bigger, larger open patterns. You know, prairie is an incredible camouflage. It's strata, but in a brown and tan and open tan forms that are just, it's beautiful out west here. So the big thing is trying to blend into any terrain that you're dealing with. Bottom line is real simple. Merriam turkey is one of the funnest to hunt, and the reason being is because they are most vocal. And they're always on their feet, they're always going, and you have to get up and go. It's just like hunting elk or mule deer or something like that out west. Make sure that you have a good set of optics, because I'm gonna tell you, you're gonna glass a long distance, and if they're not really good, they're gonna fatigue your eyes, you're gonna get a headache, and it's not gonna be a fun hunt. You really want to get to vantage points, look down in these draws, but also pay attention to where you see those trees. Those trees are critical to their survival, for that's where they're roosting. Doesn't mean they're staying there all day, but they have to find trees to roost in. So when you look at these big areas and there's all vast, and all of a sudden you see just these treetop tips, get over there and look, because you'd be surprised. It's probably a roosting area. You know, the other thing to remember, especially, you know, heading out west, is a lot of the times you've got to draw tags. So be prepared to, you know, first of the year, get on their social media and check out the states that you plan to hunt and find out when you have to apply. Some states are over the counter, but others are not. So you want to be prepared. The other thing to remember is watch the weather. You know, these birds live in an area that, well, sometimes can be brutal, but they're still going to do what turkeys do. You just got to be prepared for with the right clothing and the right gear.